Hi guys, Lindsay here with Storybrook Family Farm. In lieu of the hurricane that has happened and then the one that is coming now, it's been a very interesting thing to look at our lifestyle and what we've done and how that set us up to have a more resilient sort of a life. For context, I live in Ohio, so I am not in the path of any sort of hurricane. If there was some sort of hurricane, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other problems going on if there's something that's going to directly hit Ohio. But we do have other big storms that do happen in this area that we do get impacted from, despite living in a very mild climate. So for us, it's more of a big concern of there being some sort of calamity that happens during the winter time. So that changes how you look at preparedness on a homestead when in the summertime it doesn't get that super hot. It'd be relatively easy to weather out it being, the power being out for a week or 2 weeks, something of the sort like that. However, in this climate, since I am in a colder climate, in the wintertime is the highest probability of times that we would be without power, that we would get snowed in, that we would not be able to get access to the stores or anything of the sort like that. And since we're coming into that season, I thought it'd be a good time to actually talk a little bit about some of the preparedness sort of things that we've done that have not been something that costs us a lot of money, that are just regular implementations of our daily life. So one of the things that we've done is we chose, when we bought this house, it did not have heat. We chose to use a wood stove as our sole heat source. Granted, we do have a heat cool pump now that will provide heat until it's down to 40 degrees out. So like today it's in the low 60s, so that's how we're keeping the house warm and comfortable. But soon it's going to be just providing with heat. We're providing wood heat. But so one of the things that we did was we opted for doing a wood heat source. So in that way, no matter what happened, we were able to stay warm. It also is very cheap when you have woods around you to heat with wood because it's just essentially your own time, your own efforts. So while this may seem like a doomsday prepper sort of thing to do, and it seems kind of radical to be, a younger female that decided that they wanted to heat with wood, it might seem kind of radical in this modern day and age when everything's much easier to just push a button. It actually is a lot cheaper for us to heat with wood. I enjoy cutting the wood. I enjoy messing with it. I enjoy the whole process of it. So it makes a lot of logical sense. Some of the other things that we have done that haven't really been as like a doomsday type of thing, it was out of financial necessity. And it also really helps for that sort of a time period, is we elect to do a lot of canning. Canning is a way that makes it so then that way you can have a lot of food stored up without having to rely on electricity, without having to rely on freezers or anything of the sort like that. Plus the stuff stays shelf stable for several years, making it so it's very easy to store. You can just put it somewhere. You can set it in the basement. You can put it under your bed, in your closet. It doesn't matter. You're not tied to where's an outlet, where can I fit a freezer, how am I going to rearrange things. You're not stuck with that sort of a thing. Another thing that we had done was we got antique equipment. We have a meat grinder that is a hand crank meat grinder, which I'm actually getting ready to go use here soon to make some deer burger. But we also have things like a food processor that's from the 1950s. We got it at a garage sale for I think $1.50, and it had all the attachments, so you can shred stuff, you can do all the different things, and it's just a simple hand crank thing. How we make our coffee in the morning, this was something that we started whenever we lived in the camper because we did not have space on the counter to have a regular coffee pot, was we actually got one of the little French press thingies that you just put boiling water in and then you push the plunger majig down, making it so that way you don't have to worry about buying coffee grounds, so it saves you money there. Or not coffee grounds, the coffee filters. It saves you money to not have to buy the coffee filters every couple months, and it also makes it so you have less to throw away because you can just compost the entire thing of the coffee grounds. A lot of these different things that might seem like just kind of weird old-fashioned things, they actually are a way to gain more security in your own preparedness, because honestly, what would happen if the power went off for a long time because we do not have a generator, we do not have solar, we have no plans on getting solar, which I'll touch on that in a minute. Honestly, what we would do if we were in a long-term power outage situation is we would start canning up everything that we had in the freezer. All of the meat, all of that stuff. So that makes it very important to be able to have the ability to crank the meat grinder yourself, to do it by hand, to make it so that way you have more variety than just shredded meat or big chunks of meat. Because I'm telling you, after a while, eating the same exact thing gets pretty boring. We've been there. We've done that. certain things have been really cheap at certain times, so we eat a lot of it, like eggs. I've done that for a while. Ate so many eggs that I never wanted to eat them again. Hence why we downsized our chicken flock. But anyways, now for the solar discussion. The reason that we do not bother with solar or anything, even though that's something that's very, very popular nowadays, is, people in the preparedness community talk about how important it is to go completely off grid, to generate your own power, all that stuff. I don't think it's important. To be quite honest, our ancestors beyond us, it's only been in the last 70 years that it's been commonplace for houses to all have electricity. Prior to that, you didn't have power. You had things like oil lamps, which we have because I love collecting old antique things like that. Mr. Turkey, please stop pecking at this. We have things like oil lamps, so in that way, if the lights go out, you still have lighting. Stop it. You're being a pain in the butt. So that makes it so that way we have lighting. We also have candles, which make the house smell really nice, and it creates a really nice aesthetic, and it just creates a nice vibe, creates light. You can also make candles yourself, which I've done that out of deer tallow, which is just rendering the fat down into, if it was a pig, it'd be considered lard, but when it's a ruminant animal, it's called tallow, and you can make candles with that last for a very long time. Doing things like this with the oil lamps and canning and doing the old-fashioned skills that our grandparents used to do will give you so much of a sense of resilience and so much pride knowing that no matter what happens in the world around you, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. Because honestly, you could water bath can literally anything. Okay? And I know that somebody's going to be like, oh, well, you could get botulism and all this stuff. If you do it properly, if you reheat the food properly and follow all the proper steps that our ancestors would have, like bringing things up to a boil for over 5 minutes, it will kill off a lot of organisms, spores, things that are not good for you. Obviously, if it's moldy and smelly and grotesque looking, obviously something went wrong. But back in the day, there was not microwaves. Back in the day, the only way to heat up your leftovers or your canned goods was to throw them in a pot or put them on a fire and cook the bejesus out of them, rendering them safe to eat. That's how all of our ancestors survived till now. We are all a product of really sketchy things. There's other ways to preserve food, like smoking, salting the meat, things of that nature, which I don't have experience with because honestly, that was my finger. Such a jerk. These little turkeys, man. They are not as friendly as their uncle. But anyways, things that were commonplace activities 100 years ago are going to be important if things happen, like how the hurricane happened in North Carolina, and all these people are, and it's not just North Carolina, it's obviously South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, all that stuff, and we got another one coming for Florida and stuff. Those sorts of old-fashioned skill sets are important no matter what climate you live in, no matter if there's a big economic downturn that makes it so that way it's more really expensive and unaffordable to have electricity, or if it's difficult for, I don't even know what other reasons. You could come up with a million different reasons. I just know for me, I don't really worry about too many other things because of the old-fashioned skill sets, because of turning to having things be manually powered. Granted, I love electricity. I love having the power. I love having a washing machine. But I've washed clothes by hand several times in a bathtub, and it's really not the end of the world. It's not that hard to use your hands and just massage the snot out of them and then wring it out, rinse it out, and hang it on a line. It's not that big of a deal. It's hard for people to adjust at first, to go without the modern amenities, to go without conveniences. But after a while, you get used to it. Before we bought this house, we lived in a camper, and for 11 and a half months, we did not have running water. After the first 2 weeks or so, we got really used to it. It wasn't that big of a deal. At first, it was a huge deal. It was like a huge culture shock. Of course, too, we went from living in, 1,100 square feet to 270 square feet. So that definitely was a help with the shock, too. But to downsize and to do without, the first couple weeks are hard. After that, it becomes easy. There's no need to spend your entire life savings on basically things to make it so you can continue on your normal, comfortable life. Because honestly, if a situation happened, if a disaster happened and stuff to where, the entire town that you live in doesn't have power and you're the only one with power, that's going to be kind of a weird situation that people are all going to flock to you when they see that your lights are on and nobody else's are. If you catch my drift there, that's kind of my thought on the whole making sure you have power when nobody else does, is that kind of puts you in a vulnerable spot. It's like one of them big flashing neon lights that says, "Come in, I'm open." But that's just sort of my take on that whole situation. Another thing too is learning different skill sets to make it so then that way you can continue on providing your own meat. In the case of not being able to go to the store, or with the hurricane, how a lot of stores, things have gone bad, things have rotted, things are just not safe to eat. If you do raise animals, or you know how to hunt and you know how to process the animals yourself, it does make things a little bit more comfortable, especially for where I'm living at now. It is actively squirrel season and deer season, so if things got really sketchy, you could just spend a lot more time in the woods to procure more food. So, also on that side note too, get some books on foraging. That'll be good for you. But so that's it for me today. I actually have to go work on grinding up some deer burger, so then that way it can be in the freezer for this winter. So anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.